English is a language that opens doors. It helps us connect with people, get better jobs, and travel the world confidently. But being fluent in English doesn't come overnight. It's like planting a seed and watching it grow. Listening to English stories is one of the best ways to learn because stories make learning fun and easy. They teach words, sentences, and ideas naturally, just like how kids learn to speak their first language. So, if you want to speak English fluently, let's dive into a story that might just change how you think about learning forever. The wind howled that night, rushing through the narrow streets of Chicago. Emily sat by her small apartment window, staring out at the glowing city lights. She had a secret that had changed her life forever, and she was about to share it with her closest friends. But first, let me take you back to where it all began. It started when Emily was 22, fresh out of college and brimming with dreams. But there was one problem: she wasn't fluent in English. Sure, she could understand it, read it, and even write a little, but speaking? That was her nightmare. Whenever she opened her mouth, words came out like puzzle pieces that didn't fit. Job interviews became disasters, conversations awkward, and her confidence plummeted. One evening, she sat alone in a park, her head buried in her hands. "Why can't I just speak like everyone else?" she whispered. That's when an old man sitting nearby chuckled softly. "You remind me of myself," he said, his voice warm but mysterious. Emily looked up, startled. The man introduced himself as Mr. Brown. "If you really want to be fluent," he said, leaning closer, "you have to fall in love with the language. Not study it, not memorize it, fall in love with it." Emily didn't understand what he meant. She asked, "But how?" Mr. Brown smiled, pulled out a small book from his bag, and handed it to her. "Start with stories," he said. "Let them take you to places. Don't just read or listen, live them." She took the book home, opened it, and began reading aloud. The story was about a young adventurer, Jack, who traveled across the world to find a magical key. At first, Emily struggled. Words tripped over her tongue, and sentences felt heavy. But something amazing happened. As she read, she began to picture Jack's journey, his courage, his fears, his triumphs. The more she read, the more the language became alive to her. The next day, Emily found an online group where people shared and discussed English stories. Nervously, she joined and shared Jack's story. Her voice wavered, but the group listened. "That was great," someone said. For the first time, she felt her words being understood, not judged. Emily didn't stop there. She made a promise to herself every day she would listen to one English story, read one aloud, and practice speaking about it. She found stories about love, adventure, history, and even horror. The more stories she consumed, the more her fluency grew. Words that once felt foreign began to feel like old friends. One night, while listening to a podcast story about a young woman who conquered her fears, Emily realized something: stories weren't just helping her learn English, they were helping her rediscover herself. She started to write her own stories, combining her dreams and experiences. One of her favorite tricks was shadowing. She would play a podcast and repeat every word and sentence, trying to match the speaker's tone and rhythm. At first, it felt silly, but soon, it became second nature. Another secret she discovered was to focus on phrases, not individual words. Instead of learning words like run fast or track separately, she learned phrases like run fast on the track. This made her sound more natural and fluent. But Emily's greatest discovery came during a road trip. She had downloaded a story called The Curious Life of Ellie, a tale about a girl who learned to embrace her flaws. As the car sped down the highway, Emily found herself speaking to her friend, Alex, about the story. She didn't realize until later that she had been speaking fluently the entire time. Her friend, amazed, said, "How did you do it?" Emily laughed and said, "I stopped trying to speak perfectly. I just started telling stories." Fast forward to today, Emily has become a motivational speaker, helping others overcome their fear of English. Her secret? Stories? If you're still here, I want you to remember this: fluency isn't about perfection. It's about connection. It's about finding joy in the process, like Emily did. So pick up a story, listen to it, live it, and share it. Your fluency journey is waiting to begin. Before I go, here's a thought: the words you're afraid to say today might become someone's favorite story tomorrow. If this inspired you, don't forget to like and share this story. Let's spread the magic of fluency together.